So it begins. Early last Friday morning, anti-Israel activists vandalized a New York City building where New York Times executive editor Joseph Kahn lives. They smeared red paint across the entrance and scrawled graffiti on the pavement stating, "Joe Kahn lies, Gaza dies." This wasn't just an act of protest. It was a warning from those who claim to fight for justice, but who instead target individuals and institutions that don't bend to their narrative. We all know how ironic this is. The New York Times has long been accused of tilting its coverage in favor of the PLO and the Palestinian Authority. For example, a recent study by the Jewish People Policy Institute found that during the operation against Iran, the New York Times devoted nearly 80% of their airtime to scrutinizing the legality of Israel's actions, while barely touching on the crimes of the Iranians, our enemies. There's no surprise there, though. This is who they are, this is who they've been always when they were reporting on Israel. They pander to Islam and to the jihadists. And this panderism is spreading throughout the Western world. Just as the left wing in Israel, especially the kibbutzim around Gaza, have been doing for years. They were the biggest believers in peace with the Islamists. They championed coexistence. They supported concessions. They saw Gazans as partners. They gave them jobs. They treated their children in Israeli hospitals. They even mourned their dead. And what did they get in return? What did we all get in return for that? October 7th. With the atrocities, the slaughter, the betrayal. So, how do you think all this pandering to Muslims is going to end up for your countries? Hi, I'm Danny Seaman, and you're watching Straight Up on JNS TV in Jerusalem, Israel. Your countries are all walking the same path, embracing the same delusions many here in Israel did for a long time. Joseph Kahn learned the hard way that sucking up to Islam does not protect you, that good intentions do not shield you from their hatred, that no amount of empathy will make you immune to an ideology that sees you as an infidel that needs to be extinguished. And unless you wake up, you'll face the same reckoning that we did. Many people, and unfortunately governments in Europe, are normalizing terrorist organizations. First by downplaying their explicitly racist Islamic rhetoric, then by ignoring their repeated violations of international laws. Worse still, they excuse and even accept their acts of terror, whitewashing them or choosing to ignore them, or actively shielding the perpetrators. In Israel, for years, the left-wing establishment, the media, the courts, all played a role in legitimizing Arab terrorist organizations. No one called them out. No one demanded accountability of these organizations or insisted that commitments they signed be honored. The same pattern is unfolding in Europe. In England, a culture of self-loathing and misplaced guilt has taken hold, where despicable behavior is projected back onto ourselves. Condescending self-righteousness wrapped in the soft bigotry of low expectations. It creates a situation where they are cautious about calling out an attacker's background because it might violate anti-discrimination norms. This is the madness of moral relativism, the same moral confusion that leads to the protection of violent invaders while they plot your destruction. We shouldn't be surprised then when Europeans ignore and turn a blind eye to the atrocities Islamists are perpetrating against Israel. They're doing it to themselves because they only see what they want to see. Religious, national, and cultural traditions are at the core of civilization. Part of the battle that Islamists and their allies are waging is the attempt to erode and eliminate all of our national symbols and identity. When they attack, they do so celebrating according to the instructions of the Quran. The passages calling on them to butcher the infidels, not Zionists, not occupiers, not military, not Jews, non-believers in Islam, all of us. All of you. They expect your good deeds and your giving because you're subservient to Islam and therefore acting as Allah has instructed you to. Even if you receive them with open arms, provide them with all the necessities, you're still a kufr, no more than dead people. The battle we in Israel are fighting now is one that you are slowly slipping into. Believe me, we in Israel have a sixth sense about these things, or should I say more like an October 7th sense. And speaking about Europe, once again, a group of Europeans decided that they're sending another flotilla to Gaza to help the Gazans. And I thought, who better than to talk to the person that I think it's maybe 15 years ago was part of an organization here called Latma, that they had a very famous music video in which they used the song "We Are the World." They call it "We Con the World." And it doesn't matter how many years are going by, they are continuing to con the world. I shared it at the time when I was director of the government press office with the international media. And one of the people behind Latma and behind that comedy skit at the time was Tal Gilad, who is also a scriptwriter, a journalist, a commentator on Israeli television, and has a very keen sense, as I spoke before, of the sense that we Israelis have. He also has a keen sense to this, what is this connection? And now that we have Greta coming by again, because she missed us so much, I thought to talk to Tal, who can give us a little insights into this Islamic jihadist Western connection and why it's working so well. Thank you, Tal, for being with us.
Thank you for having me here. Yes, we often wonder about what is the disconnection between queers and Palestine, Islam and climate change. But if you think thoroughly about it, you'll find that actually it's almost a natural connection, because all these groups, what they have in common is that nothing is their fault. I mean, they never take responsibility for anything. It's always somebody else's fault. It's typical to left, to Islam, to those climate change warriors, and so on. What is common to all these groups? It's everything in their life and in the world is somebody else's fault. And on the contrary, you see for example, in the conservatives or even in the, what we call capitalists, they take responsibility for their lives. I mean, a capitalist would think that his life would be better if he works harder, if he puts more efforts into his life. While the essence of the left, I'm talking about hardcore left, like the communism, for example, is that everything is somebody else's fault. And this is common to all these groups that are also anti-Israeli.
That's sort of this self-pity that they have, and this is while capitalists and the conservatives want the government to not interfere and leave us alone and let us run our lives. They all, on the left wing, the Marxist elements, they want as much government involvement as possible, which only makes their lives worse, and then makes their self-pity increase, I guess.
Yes, I don't know if what they want is actually that the life would be worse, but I think they don't think to a long range. It's very exciting and very easy to be against something. Not much efforts are required for this. If you are just demonstrating outside against something, against some bad guys, the rich guys, or the Israelis, or the Jews, or whatever, it does not require too much effort. You just dress up, you go out to the street, and you're against something, and you're shouting against something. You don't have to be too constructive. And being constructive requires efforts.
Well, they do seem to have a very good effort when they want to undermine things and cause disruption of normal life and tear down
Yeah.
the facilities in a nation. So they do have this
Motivation.
Yeah, the motivation. That's the word I was looking for. So
Yeah.
they are motivated. Something does motivate them in this case.
What we see is that these groups, the same as with destroying a sand castle on the beach, they don't have any long-term plan about it. They are just enjoying being against something, destroying something. It's great fun, just to go wild in some room and just hit everything with the hammer and destroy it. You don't have to build everything.
Well, they were also involved, we know, with the exchange of the regime in Iran. And the left wing, there was a left wing Marxist element in Iran itself. And also together with the left wing in France, who supported Khomeini at the time, they were very supportive of changing the regime in Iran itself. And how did that turn out for them? Because they were very successful in destroying, but with Islam, it's a whole different game.
It's totally different, and we can notice something else. These regimes that come to power as a result of these revolutions, they remain forever the revolutionary powers. It's always the same in Cuba and the same in Iran. They're always the revolution. Even after they have been in power for 50 years or no matter how many years, they're always the revolution because it's easier to be the revolution all the time. When you are all the time the revolution, there are always some bad guys that you are fighting against. You don't have to build anything in your country to improve life of people in your country. They're all the time bad guys that you have to fight against. It's the same as it was in Russia after the revolution in Russia at the beginning of the 20th century. Even after the revolution, they kept on looking for bad guys. They were looking for the kulaks that are stealing the food from all the people. And until today, the best thing what they are the best in is propaganda. It's always, the communist propaganda, the Russian propaganda, the leftist propaganda. They are very good in this. They are very good in public relations. They are very good in copywriting. So this is what they are good at. Yeah, when it comes to actually doing something good for their peoples or for themselves, then
Well, I disagree with you on that. When it says they're coming doing good for themselves, we know that for themselves they know how to do this very nicely. We have Russia, of course, but if you take the Islamists, they're all billionaires from the money that they're gathering.
yeah,
And we also know with a lot of these revolutionaries in the United States, Black Lives Matter, etc., they've all taken very good care of themselves even before they transfer money and finances to their cause.
of course, yes. When I said themselves, I meant in the meaning of for their countries, but
I know,
for
but
themselves,
I
yeah.
couldn't. I had to use that.
Yeah. But for themselves, it's totally true, and also it's very typical to these kind of regimes. What the funniest thing is about communism that talks about equality between everybody, and actually you see that the leaders are extremely rich. I mean, ridiculously rich, and the people are poor, are very poor. And it's very typical also in the Hamas, in all these organizations in many Islamic countries, most Islamic countries actually, and in communist countries. It's true that they are taking care of their own selves. Of course, they are taking very good care, and they are just exploiting their own peoples.
It's not only their own people exploiting all these people who want to feel like they're doing something. And one of the issues that is being brought up right now is the fact of having the replacement of the Arabs in Gaza to be removed from Gaza to elsewhere. And we have a lot of people, especially on the left wing, telling us that that is inhumane and it's impossible. But very interesting if we're combining that with the fact of taking care of themselves. I believe that the wife of Sinwar, for some reason, though we have the images from the first day of what was happening on October 7th, she was with him in the tunnel. But since then, she found her way, I believe, to Turkey, and she's has $2 billion with her. So again, they took care of themselves and he took care of his own family, while families of Gazans there that he has used as human shields, they're still suffering the consequences of what he did.
Yeah, it's no wonder about it. I think that even many of the Gazans are aware of this at this time, that their leaders actually took very well care of themselves and fled to other countries with a lot of money, with ridiculous amounts of money and property, while the Gazans themselves are suffering. And may I add, not that I feel any pity for the Gazans after what many of them did in October 7, and we are very well aware that among the people who crossed the border and slaughtered and killed and raped were many civilians, including even what is shocking is that there were even children there.
Right.
And so, frankly, I can't say that I feel any pity about the people of Gaza. But on the other hand, of course, it's true that they are being exploited and brainwashed by their leaders.
It's not only the leaders. If we would go now, move back to this whole flotilla thing and this whole movement in Europe and the United States and Western countries, of these self-righteous demonstrators that are using and playing on this thing instead of calling out their leadership. I believe one of the heads of the flotillas, going back to this use of revolutionary, supports the leader of Iran because he's a revolutionary even now, 40 years, almost 50 years after what they did in Iran. And these people are manipulating it for their own self-righteous causes.
Yes, it's very exciting. Revolution and all this, it's very exciting. There is something very childish about it, to be extremely excited about revolution without knowing what you will do after the revolution. And the same as destroying a castle, a sand castle on the beach. I believe you are referring to this, to the Brazilian person in
Yes,
the
yes, you're right.
flotilla. Yes, we see again in his approach and in the approach of Greta Thunberg, whom I call Crazy Greta. We see this same. They're all the time excited about being against something. Now they are going to bring food to the starving people of Gaza. We know that in the last flotilla that they tried, they suddenly by miracle they found a boat with the Sudanese refugees in the sea. It's all a big show. It's all just a big show. And when it comes to a big show, there is no rationale behind it. They don't know clearly. Most of them, all of them, don't know what is the history of the conflict here, what is behind everything. The fact that they use the word Palestine, free Palestine, which is on one hand a genocidal slogan,
Right.
and on the other hand shows complete ignorance about knowing what is Palestine, what is really Palestine. It's again, we are dealing with people who are doing very, very easy work for themselves. They just live in some kind of a cloud of slogans of who are the bad guys, who are the good guys. They don't think thoroughly about this whole issue. They don't want to think thoroughly about the whole this issue.
And that's regarding them. But we see they're not exactly being supported by governments in Europe, for example, Canada, Australia, etc. But these governments, I believe, understand they have a huge problem as a consequence of what these people have done in their own countries, have opened up the borders, wanting to show humanity and brought in all these third world countries into their own countries. And they're dealing with a really dangerous situation right now. But yet they point the finger at Israel and they're diverting attention to Israel, just like the Jews were scapegoated in past. We have that scapegoating happening now, only now it's Israel.
Yeah, we have two issues here. One is the good old anti-Semitism, and the second one is the West is enjoying some guilt feelings about the past, which are implemented where the issue is irrelevant. I understand. We know about USA and about their history with black slavery and about the Indians and about Europe and about colonialism. As a result of this, they are actually implementing these guilt feelings according to skin color, simply. We are concepted as some kind of white colonialists, I don't know what, and they are concepting themselves also as some kind of people who are guilty only by the fact that they are white. And and those who are browner than they are, who have a different skin color, are the one who were I don't know, enslaved, colonialized, or whatever. And this has nothing to do. This is absolutely have nothing to do with true history. If you're looking at the Arabs have never been colonialized, except for some pathetic French attempt in Algeria. The Arabs have never been really colonialized by the Europeans. And okay, there was some occupation mandate actually after the World War I, between World War I to the establishment of the Arab countries and Israel, but it was not colonialism. It was, a temporary occupation. They
Well, a
were actually
transfer from a situation pre-World War I to the New World. It took about 20 years, but they also
yeah,
created Arab countries. People forget about that. They
indeed.
created
Yeah.
Arab countries.
They created Arab countries which were beforehand were occupied by Muslims, by
Right.
the Ottoman Empire. And when people today are angry with some of the European countries like Hungary and Slovakia, Poland for not accepting Muslim refugees, they forget that these countries, especially Hungary, by the way, suffered a lot from Muslim occupation.
Right.
The history of Europe until, let's say, until the 17th century, and even after that, they were attacked again and again by the Ottoman Empire. The reason that there are Muslim nations today in Europe, like for example in Albania or Bosnia and in Macedonia and such, is still remained of the Ottoman occupation. So actually, it was Europe that was attacked many times by the Muslims, not the other way around. And also in the other side, in Spain, it was the French king that at some point managed to stop the Muslims from trying to get into France. So you know,
Through Spain, which they called
tr-
Andalus. Till this day, they call it Andalus.
right? They still dream about going back to Spain. They
Exactly.
still see Spain as a occupied land by the infidels. These guilt feelings that the Europeans have are simply, in many cases, simply totally irrelevant to real history.
And that's unfortunately, as you mentioned before, these revolutionaries are dumbed down to the fact that they are not familiar with the history and they're more concerned with the self-righteous presentation of what they believe to be the righteous stuff. And it's making all of our lives, we in Israel are now addressing it. I don't think that the Europeans, and you're also a tour guide in Europe, you come into contact with them. Some final words of where you see how Europe is going and things that you have been aware of in your visits there.
Yeah, Western Europe is going down. Western Europe is in very difficult situation now because, they accepted all this flood of Muslim immigration, and you can't say a word against it because then you're labeled as racist, which is against totally irrelevant. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with immigrants who are trying to turn the country that accepted them into their old country. They're trying to, and they say it very clearly and very openly that they want to Islamize the country. And recently, we see people in Belgium, in Germany, saying to the Germans, "If you don't like it, then leave." They are saying to the Germans, "If you don't like it, then leave." And it's a totally does not have anything to do with racism. If some of the people there feel are very uncomfortable about it, but they're afraid to say it because they're afraid to be labeled as racist. And Western Europe is totally in very bad situation now, and we see it in the streets. We see it even tourists who come there and say that they feel totally different than how it was 10, 20 years ago. And on the other hand, you see these Central and Eastern European countries that simply blocked their border. They said, we don't care about what the European Union wants to tells us, or whatever penalties they impose on us. We don't want people coming here and changing the nature of our country. And they are in much calmer situation. The crime rate there is going down, while we see the crime rate in Western Europe going like 10 times more than it was before. And the results speak.
Exactly. And I think that if they want to learn anything from
Mhm.
Israel, is that you have to hold them to, because when we have Arabs living in Israel, a large percentage of the population here, and yet they're law-abiding citizens, and they work in every aspect of life here. Even in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, while Israel was in control of these areas, you didn't have the extent of violations and terrorism as you had the moment that the Palestinian Authority took over. So I think and unfortunately, once we let loose and let them control things, it ended up with us having to stand up and this extended fight that we have at the moment that I hope will be bringing to an end soon. And the Europeans have to understand that this fight that we're fighting is their fight in a way, and I think they have a lot to learn from us and not to teach us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about this. Um, it's very funny. It's sometimes funny and pathetic to see the Europeans preaching to us what we should do, while they are having this enormous problem in their own backyard. Ironically, I think that Israel has been handling these situations much better along the years because we live more or less usually in peace with the Arabs who live in Israel. There is a large Arab minority in Israel. 20% of the Israelis are Arabs. And okay, except for problems here and there sometimes, everything is more or less okay. And
We don't have to love each other, but we live together.
yeah, exactly. We set the borders, and everything is more or less clear. And with the so-called Palestinian
Right.
population in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, yes, the situation is totally different because um, first of all, we never lived with them. It's always, beside them somehow, and they are totally brainwashed in horrendous hatred toward the Jews and Israel. By the way, racist hatred toward
Right.
Jews, because it seems as if it's okay to be racist against Jews. Without about anybody else, you would say that we have to treat individually everyone by his personality, by his character. When it comes to Jews, it seems like it is legitimate, and sometimes it is even conceived as legitimate by the Europeans, that Jews are attacked just because they are Jews, not for any other reason. If a synagogue is burnt down, then it's because what is Israel is doing, and it can be understood. If football supporters are attacked somewhere in Amsterdam, then it's because what Israel is doing, it can be somehow understood. Okay, like they say, it's wrong, but there should not be any but.
Exactly. And I'm just to wrap up our conversation. You're a second generation to Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
Your father may live a long life, is 100 years old already,
Mhm.
and Michael. And
Michael, yes.
people who know history may know him as the police officer, the Israeli police officer who escorted Eichmann during the Eichmann trial. And later, during the trial, it was revealed that he was one of these who suffered abuse. It's called the 81st strike. The 81st strike, he was beaten and
Yeah.
whipped your father in Auschwitz, was it?
It was when he got these 80 flogs. It was in
80
the ghetto
flogs.
of Przemyśl.
Okay, sure. So,
And later he was deported to Auschwitz.
and I mention this because here we've been through the worst that is possible in history, and yet here we are in the state of Israel. Your father grew up here, brought up a wonderful family, you being one of them, and we're
Thank
very
you.
grateful for him. And just to show everyone here that Am Yisrael Chai, we go through difficult things. We're going through a difficult era now, but
Mhm.
we've overcome greater difficulties. We'll overcome this as well, especially now that we can defend and protect ourselves. So
Mhm.
I want to thank you very much, Tal, for being with us, and
Thank you.
continue with your comedy skits and putting a smile on on events going on. And enjoy your time and safe journeys.
Thank you very much.
And thank all of you for watching us once again. You're watching Straight Up here on JNS TV in Jerusalem, Israel. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you again next week.